top lane, and of course the Kalista that Teddy is actually 3-0 on, undefeated. They will take that away from him.
And let's see if the bans follow this cadence of just kind of banning high-powered champions. So far, none of the targeted bans I expected to come out have been enacted. I think attacking Umti's champion pool is one thing you want to do. Is when Umti has a invade advantage, when he has a skirmishing advantage over the enemy jungler in the 1v1, Kha'Zix versus a tank, for example, that's when Jin Air look most comfortable. But for now, the Camille, a flex pick for the side of Jin Air, still available. The Skarner, which has been very frequently banned or first rounded on the last couple of match days, available. See what Jin Air want to first pick? I think they want to first pick the Skarner.
It's looking like it. I was watching the other day, I think yesterday, and we had Jax versus Skarner. I'm like, what year is it right now? It's fun to see these two champions back in the jungle.
A lot available. Ryze available, Zoe available. It's kind of a risky one for Jin Air because they ban away the Jax, suggesting a first pick Skarner because you're pinching the jungle pool. But will there be enough picks? Because it feels like the first two on red side will be very high-powered champions, and they don't have a Jax reaction answer for themselves. So they've kind of priced themselves into a first pick Skarner. They'll take it. That's how they set up their draft. But I don't think KT is worried about this take-up because they have a lot of options themselves.
That they do. Lots of picks in the mid lane still available. The Ryze, the Malzahar still left up here. Even Azir, another high power pick. Zoe as well.
I mean, you could draft Zoe and the best AD carry. Let's say a Xayah here. You can take Zoe and Xayah and not really feel bad about the fact that your pool has been pinched. They're actually willing to go for the entire Xayah Rakan. We've seen a couple of teams willing to break up this duo by picking away. We had Ezreal Rakan, which is a bit of a comical duo lane. It ended up winning, but we're not talking about the power level of it. KT, they want to get their Lovers duo on. Deftenmada on the Lovers duo. Jin Air need to reinforce the bot lane. Losing the 2v2 was the big problem for them last time these two teams faced. You know they're going to pick power. Varus Braum is available, but they're going to go for Varus Tahm Kench to defend a pick comp.
Yeah, they'll be good against those picks. They have also some engage potential with that Abyssal Voyage, maybe in tandem with the Skarner. We'll see what they want to do with that. We'll have to take a closer look at the entire draft once we get through it.
You'd think that at this point Skrull would take a jungler because otherwise further jungle bans will come. Could take Kha'Zix here if he wants it. The Jarvan would be more engaged, so he goes for the engaged choice. Been a common one for him this season, not necessarily only victories. 3-2 on the Jarvan. The 5-0 Sejuani banned away, of course, by Jin Air GreenWings, but does take the jungle. So it's all about bot lane and the junglers. Mid lane pool was very wide open, but no one wants to disagree on which roles they select for fear of further pinching. See where the pinch starts here into the second round. KT does have first pick on the red side afterwards. Waiting. Will be the Taliyah ban. We mentioned the Taliyah Skarner was the duo we were most impressed with. They don't go for a first round Taliyah. They don't get Taliyah.
Yeah, I would expect some more of these bans towards the mid lane. As I was talking about before, still so much available. It's funny that they go for that kind of ban instead of, you know, Ryze, Azir, Zoe, Malzahar. There's still so much left available, and we might just go down the list here. Azir is going to be banned by Jin Air, and at the end of it all, if we do have 4 mid lane bans, of course it would favor KT because they do get this first pick afterwards, but it's going to be more targets towards the top lane. The Sion being banned out here, not going to give that one over to Sowan, even though Sowan has not played it just yet, but I definitely guarantee he's practiced it a lot.
Let me tell you a story, Valdez. If you can play Ornn, you can play Sion. They're almost exactly the same champion outside of the ultimate. So, safe pick is taken away. See what it means, though, because it means they're not going to pinch the mid lane pool as much. The Ryze, the expected ban, both power level and against Pawn. So we'll see what they make of this with Galio and the other 3 big mid laners banned away. So Malzahar is a Pawn favorite, but of course has fallen in priority. They're going to counterpick for mid lane. So now Sowan has to sit with a situation where his effective champion pool this season has been Gnar, Vlad, and the Ornn. Gnar is taken away and his highest win rate champion. Ornn would be the safe initiation. They kind of need a secondary initiator. The Lucian would be very interesting. It would be a top lane Lucian into Gnar, you would imagine. They're going to go for it, okay.
Wow, okay.
That's a very different approach from Sowan compared to recent memory. He's been on the tanks more than busting lane. Yep. Fun to see, and with the Zoe open, looks like it will likely be the draft here Very interesting to see what Corki, if a Corki is taken into it for Pawn, could look for a farm lane. Waiting for the last couple of seconds here. Very squishy lineup by the side of Jin Air. Skarner the only frontliner, and Tom Ken's going to be peeling for the Varus, likely. Okay, so they really want lane pressure top side so that Skarner can potentially look for the invade. They blind pick the Zoe. Not that many good matchups against it on this patch, but they just can't take the Malzahar and play through it. To me, this draft is all about how can actually act aggressively around the Lucian Zoe in the early game. If he can push up vision, if he can take over the enemy red side jungle and make the Jarvan accountable. Usually you don't talk about Skarner as a Battle Ward champion, but pre-6, skanks aren't that strong, so perhaps that's the best use of his kit. If you can do that, and then Pawn is isolated, doesn't have a Jarvan to actually have deletion damage onto the Zoe, this could be a very powerful snowball draft from Jin Air. But if they fall behind Valdez, we know that these 1-3-1 drafts, or this is a 4-1 draft, I guess we should say, Lucian from behind, not as useful. Even on patch 8.3, Zoe from behind will fall away. No tank lineups struggle to actually take down any sort of vision control around Baron. So a lot of risk to the draft from Jin Air, but they're trying something different.
And then you look at KT's draft, they have this immense amount of pick on their side. They have the Malzahar that's going to be forcing out the QSSs, and it's not just him. The Gnar to follow up on J4 or Rakan who are engaging. They can get onto this squishy lineup of Jin Air pretty easily, especially if they get far ahead. As you said, it's a lot of pressure here on but also on Sohan and Grace to try to win their lanes.
And that's kind of the struggle, is that you look on the side of Jin Air, definitely can have a strong 4-1. Siege can be powerful with Zoe and Varus for turret taking, and Skarner just patrolling, looking for a pick. You're like, okay, there's a way to win. So they passed the first test, but when we eventually flip over to the side of KT, they have team fight, lots of initiation for team fight. They also have a pick comp that is very scary from ahead. If the control ward line goes down, if it advances forward, it's going to strangle the life out of Jin Air. So Jin Air's win condition may be effective, but it's so narrow that if KT have a good start, if Score has some great pathing, the game may be decided very early.
Showing confidence from Jin Air after their recent loss to KT. We'll see if they can do it here with their aggressive lineup up against KT. Sohan up here on the Lucian. He has played one game on it. He's 0-1 currently. Don't quite remember the game. Do you remember, Papa?
Yeah, he was trying to bust a GP. That's the standard matchup for Lucian top in this matter, is to counter GP. Probably the strongest at doing that, even if you don't always win, because Lucian can be chain ganked. Making Score accountable is the big thing for Jin Air in the early game. Of course, going to have much higher impact ganks pre-level 6, so shutting him down, allowing the lanes to do their thing. Winning mid lane, winning top lane in terms of early pressure, although Malzahar versus Zoe is going to swing super hard either way in the early game. It's playing around Sohan, empowering him to get a CS lead on the recently buffed Lucian is a big thing here for Jin Air, and really only Score can be the person to stop the advance, the natural laning phase for the Lucian. Very comfortable into the Gnar.
Yeah, it's going to be on a knife's edge up there in the top lane. It's nice to see the confidence out of Sohan. I was talking him up a little bit. One of these super young top laners that has come into the LCK. Looked all right in 2017. Not even, like, just barely all right. But this year, he's been looking a lot better, showing more confidence and just better mechanics overall. So excited about this player. He's going up against Smeb, too, which is another thing that's like, yeah, I'm confident to play Lucian into Smeb on Gnar.
His first year as a starter, has been a sub since summer of 2015 behind other top laners like Trace, for example, and Ixu throughout 2017. Notice he's gone press the attack here. You very rarely see this on champions outside of junglers like Jax and Shyvana. So looking for very extended trades. It's a long lane in top, but actually getting 3 autos to get the 12% amp and then getting more damage in is a very, very long trade. Now, because Lucian has his passive, he does proc it particularly fast. It's going to be all about those extended trades for the Lucian. To get those trades, he needs to overextend. He needs the vision control forward. That's going to be the job of his jungler.
Yeah, seems like we've kind of pieced everything together. Now we just need to see how plays it out specifically. Is going to bring the Predator Skarner in here. This has kind of become the norm now in in Korea. Not really doing much else on the Skarner.
I'm going to be honest. I'm waiting for the Predator Hecarim. That's the one that my heart is out for. It'll come eventually when Hecarim receives the tweaks he needs to get into competitive play. Two Feast or Famine right now.
I was going to say maybe like 8.6 or something like that in the future.
I mean, Hecarim's problem is that he kind of wants to go the Jax build of the Cinderhulk into Trinity Force, and the Trinity Force as early as possible. And then with Predator, you do insane burst damage, but your jungle clear is average. If you get invaded, you have no way to get away. It's too risky. It's kind of like Jax without an escape, so that's why we don't see him. One day, though, Valdez, I'll be the hipster.
Someday,
I'll put my hand up and be like, I was waiting for it.
Remember when I mentioned it in 2018?
Remember when Jin Air has kind of been worse than KT Rolster at every point in League of Legends history?
I like that they kind of summarize spring and summer as well. They don't really give the individual matchups, but it makes sense. 4-1 and 4-0, I think it was, and then now 2-0.
I mean, if we have a passive early game, someone could look up this stat, but I'm not sure a Jin Air squad has ever finished above a KT squad, unless you're including kind of Champions days where one team got an easier group and made it to the quarterfinals. So definitely has been, organization-wise, no fun, as Skarner's buff from ages ago was on the E.
Look at this, though. Score coming in here. He's on the end of his red buff.
Skarner's in base. There's no counter gank available. Grace wants vision.
There are pings down here. He kind of knows that this is happening. The electrocute comes out, but Sleepy Trouble Bubble as the Zoe kind of giggles in the face of Jarvan. Paul not able to get in range there.
Grace actually hadn't used any potions, so he doesn't get super punished from this. Bot lane.
Yeah, well, trading. Very aggressive trades here from Mata and Deft, really trying to make this aggressive bot lane duo work out. So far, it's been pretty okay.
It's all about the back timing here. It's a huge group minion wave, but no turret dive imminent. So eventually, Teddy will be able to wrestle some CS back. Slight lead here for Deft, but with the minion wave, it's going to equalize most of it. No fun for Tahm Kench in lane when there's offensive options. Having the Deadly Plumage available to Mata makes your lane presence as the Rakan super high, of course, and then the larger range on the Battle Dance makes the Rakan laning phase actually relevant. Usually a big struggle for the Rakan player.
Yeah. So far, Teddy's been doing a good job of CSing under turret, so you notice how he preps the minions before they do come in. We got a nice long look at the bot lane down there. Grace backing underneath his turret. Thought he could get away from that one. He's very low on mana.
Yeah, got a bad back timing. So Pawn just bought a lost chapter and came back to lane. Only 900 gold. Was still on patch 8.3 to confirm. So the back timing advantage that teleport brings. Omti needs to be careful because he wants to fight for vision, but his mid laner has no presence without having shopped, so can't actually fully engage on any sort of a 2v2.
Oh, culling being used up here. So on his level 6 first. You'll notice already a wide CS gap in the top lane. There is a wave pushing in, but still about 10 CS ahead so far is So on over Smeb.
If there's no doubt that the enemy jungler is going to visit your lane, every trade that Illusion takes with Gnar is a winning trade. Same with Gangplank, same with Gnar. In the 1v1 matchups, he will always win a trade where he can fearlessly go forward with his relentless pursuit. So that's why you're seeing a lot of respect given by Smeb. It's deserved.
They're just underneath their turret the entire game so far. Teddy and Wraith not having a fun time down here. Again, still keeping up, only 1 CS behind. Tahm Kench picking up the rest.
It's not even with the Caitlyn. They went for the Zyra Khan first round. No Caitlyn ban, even after it's been the big favorite of Deft recently. Zyra Khan also a power duo. And now, plenty of lane control. Skarner was in vision for the majority of the laning phase on the top side. And it's not only just hit level 6, so the threat right there a bit lower with the Skarner compared to other picks. And when you see a top lane Lucian with the press the attack, you'd feel pretty hard done by if you were ganked by a Skarner. You know the Skarner wants to path around a strong lane, and press the attack Lucian, about the strongest top lane you could ever ask for.
I feel like we'll definitely see more of this. If we're already seeing it in 8.3, I mean 8.4, with press the attack being buffed up a bit, no doubt we'll have that a bit more up in the top lane. Should be fun times. I like the changes they've made to a bunch of the champions. GP getting nerfed as well. It's pretty cool overall.
Yeah, it's still very early days. You know, I think we're all playing solo queue and trying to understand the mid lane meta, who's good and who's bad. Tier champions obviously getting a big buff with the Archangel's trade. It's exciting times. I'm hoping Rumble's back, at least as a sometimes pick, because right now he's a never pick.
Yeah, Rumble was always really fun, you know? Very flashy. You equalize the entire team, maybe in tandem with a Jarvan, and everybody blows up.
I like ults like Shockwave and the Rumble Equalizer that can have a huge team fight impact. It's very clear what a good one and a bad one looks like, and has a lot of skill to it. So I'm ready for some Rumble, but kind of jury's out on him. Played one game, he felt slightly better, but with Gangplank being tuned down, who knows? Maybe we'll be lucky enough to see him. Maybe Teddy and Wraith will be lucky enough to actually hit a minion wave without being zoned by the Rakan.
Nobody in the bot lane has gone home. I mean, we're nearing 75 CS for both of our 80 carries.
That does benefit the Varus more than it benefits the Xayah. One item purchase for the Xayah is a building block item in the Essence Reaver, whereas one item purchase is the Rage Blade. So if you can lane to a Rage Blade, you feel pretty happy if you're the Varus. Only turret damage is the lead for KT's top side.
Smeb in a bit of trouble here. He blows his flash, but look at what's happening elsewhere on the map. The push in the bottom lane and also Umti up in the top side mean that Score and Pawn move over to the Infernal Drake and pick that up as the first Drake of the game.
It's a reaction to items as well, Valdez. First item purchase from Grace defensive in the QSS, hurting the wave clear and also the mana sustain coming through from the Zoe. First item purchase from Pawn. Fairly disrespectful if you think about it, going for the Lost Chapter first. And a player's lane. Bot lane turret, we said, was the only lead for KT. It's a big turret HP lead. Jarvan's jungling around the bot side also. This turret is in danger of going down in the next 2 minion waves.
It definitely is. Looks like Pawn's going to go back. Did pick up teleport in this one so far, just to get back to lane.
Skarner needs to get here as soon as possible, because this turret goes down. They can just rotate around the Lucian and never allow the Lucian to try to bust the Gnar 1v1. They need this lane to be up for as long as possible. We are going to finally see a recall, and if phase does extend, it needs to keep extending. The one visit from Jarvan, even a threat of a turret dive. The turret goes down, 2 people show up in Lucian's lane, and the early game plan from Jin Air kind of falls apart.
Teddy and Wraith finally having some time to relieve the pressure. They're going to get a pretty nice back here, but need to make sure they get back. Got some Resolve Tree up in here for So-On in the top lane.
Yeah.
Also, Presence of Mind.
Yeah, Presence of Mind. A very interesting choice to take, but of course pretty low cooldowns on the Lucian once you get levels in. Legends Bloodlines going for the lifesteal from the line, not the Alacrity like a lot of people take in Coup de Grace, just to put out the damage. So again, pretty standard stuff. Fairly respectful in build. You know, he's got Ninja Tabi into Vamp Scepter, but working towards Play the Ruin King. Still doing well in the lane. Not a massive CS lead, not quite the GP vs Vlad levels of fall behind for the Gnar. Still has a ranged auto attack. We mentioned these visits bot side. See Mata walk up, but not that many autos allowed from Deft.
MT's not even going down bot side. He's ignoring it. He's like, okay, we're going to lose that anyway. Let me try to get this Rift Herald, but it's scouted out. Smeb actually sees this. The question is, can they even stop it? It looks like they're just going to put the pressure on bot side and take the first blood turret instead.
So they're going to end up trading turrets over time if the Rift Herald does represent a turret like it usually does. And again, they're not stopping though. Jarvan in vision.
Krug's going on vacation, having fun in the jungle down south here. Oh, we got a little bit of trading here. Pawn actually getting chunked down. So-On coming over. He's initiating a trade with Smeb, who does have Mega Gnar available. And MT was going in there. Would love to get a look, but it looks like he backs off now.
I mean, KT's looking for a second tower. They're out-rotating Jin Air pretty comfortably here as mid lane.
Okay, we do have the Abyssal Voyage and QSS popped as this comes in. MT, though, in the wings with Predator. They know he's nearby. The flash on in. He's going to grab the Jarvan here. Not enough damage comes out, though. Mata's going to be the one in the front line, but First Blood goes over to Deft here. Featherstorm, so many low members on KT, but nobody's going down. Cullen coming out, trying to get the poke, but nobody dies on the side of KT. Grace diving underneath the turret, but still can't pick up a kill. That's going to be KT's favor as they pick up the First Blood.
Mata was a star in that fight with the grand entrance coming in, stopping any follow-up damage from taking down Score, who was the one who was grasped. Only person that ends up dying is Umti. Health bars all blinking for KT, but they can't actually force a turret from it. Here's the replay. Umti chooses Score. He's on the lowest health. He doesn't have access to Pawn. If you notice what happens here, though, Mata does the hero play because they drop so much damage into the Rakan in the front line. Mata gets out as well. A 1-for-0, all things considered for KT, after they already got the turret lead. Rift Herald not put down yet. Advantage, KT Rolster.
It looked like Grace wasn't going for closest target. He was going for Deft and Mata, who were extremely low after Mata made the incredible escape afterwards, but could not acquire a target in the end. And unfortunately, Grace remains at 0-0-0. Still has a splash available. Just got that going for him at least, but good start here for KT.
And it was all about the bot lane. It's all about Deft and Mata walking up and saying, your game plan is to jungle around a winning lane. You're not going to be bot side. We can literally deny CS, 200 units away from the turret range and be fine. We can take the turret super early, and Score just has to make a couple of visits to the red side jungle. It undoes a lot of what needed to happen this game because they lost their turret so much faster than Jin Air could get an advantage on the top side. And Infernal, the first spawn, is a nice Drake to pick up in the vertical jungling that happened. So now we take a stock of where the game is at. Lucian is still in a lane against Nara, but it's a long lane that can be collapsed upon. KT are rotating with a pretty huge item advantage. Essence Reaver to just half of a Rage Blade. Playing where you're strongest is working much better for KT compared to what advantages it's offering Jin Air GreenWings.
Yeah, I mean, look at this. Now they want to dive the top side. The Abyssal Void just doesn't get off. Actually, they're not able to get out of this one, and we are going to have the collapse here onto Teddy, who's getting extremely low. Does get eaten up here, but the entirety of KT's team wants to get both of them, and they are going to pick them off in what looks like a poor trade on the bottom side. Jin Air going to try to push in here with the Rift Herald. We'll see how much damage they can get done to turrets.
Yeah, they need the minion wave to catch up, but they might even end up getting a second turret here just because Soan can dash and animation cancel to get his passive out as much as possible. Still, 2 kills to the side of KT. Easier objectives to return to, an immediate goal to be more powerful in something representing a 5v5 fight. You feel good getting 2 turrets, but when they're both in bot side, when you haven't had bot side control, actually being able to return to the scene of the crime and get a benefit from having a long lane bot side is going to be tricky for Jin Air to engineer.
It's a lot of gold, at least, by Jin Air, taking down those 2 turrets. They're not too far behind, only 1.5 thousand gold here, 15 minutes into the game. But so far, KT doing a good job against this early pressure that Jin Air wanted to put on here. Next Drake is going to be Ocean Drake. Not going to be a bad one for KT if they just want to scoop that one up, but decide against it, thinking about pushing mid here.
Does feel like KT only have good options. I'm sure it sounds harsh to kind of talk about the KT side of the narrative, not talk about where Jin Air is at. But given where the early game should have been, it feels like KT have kind of pullen off a highway robbery in terms of pressure. If you look at the map and say, where is Jin Air strongest? I think it's actually tricky to see around the Drake where they got 2 turrets bot side. You think that's the place, but of course, the Spire control is on the side of KT. The wards are there. Nara is freshly shopped. Returning to the scene of the crime there is difficult for the side of Jin. They have no advanced vision on the blue side jungle of KT. Whereas for where KT's strongest, they basically can jungle around their mid lane or their bot lane duo, who are both in great points of power. And someone like Teddy, for example, needs to hang back. So Jin Air really needs to control an area of the map. Otherwise, the danger is that KT control all of it.
Take a look at some stats down here. MT has higher jungle proximity overall, but the ganks have been more successful for Score. I feel like some of those ganks were a team effort, especially the last one, as 5 members collapsed onto 2 in the top lane. But still, props to him, as Jarvan has been working out, playing a pretty straightforward Jarvan game so far.
Troll wards, 2 on the map. 1 you can see on your screen from Jin Air, and 1 also on the Ocean Drake to stop a quick take as Smeb walks up, and that means the Soan's around to give him half health for his troubles.
Yeah, Blade of the Rune King already finished up, so Lucian beginning to chunk down lots of targets that are in front of him.
So he's going to teleport in. He's closer, so they feeling a fight here, but Varus has to back, so it seems it's going to be a freebie for KT Rolster. The teleport was a pirated one, a free one, so of course no big thing to talk about there.
Next Drake is going to be Infernal, which is really nice for KT if they can layer those Infernal Drakes. Also, to take 2 Infernal Drakes away from the high damage composition of Jin Air is extremely good.
Seeing Lucian return to bot lane. I imagine Black Cleaver is probably going to be the second item, so similar build from Khan yesterday on the Jace. It's usually what we see on the Lucian. He's trying to create map pressure, but of course he's pushing around an area where they don't have vision, and also the objectives were already taken bot side. So nothing really to gain here, no turret to turn on to. He's going to push a couple of ways. It won't be safe, and then maybe Deft and Mata pick up the wave as it pushes into the inhibitor. Maybe Nara sticks around and gets the experience as well. In terms of map control, not a lot got around So1 in the early game, and eventually they will have that no frontliner problems. It is turning on So1.
Yeah, you were talking about lack of vision. Here comes Score. He wants it, but he fails the flag and drag, and now we got 3-on-1 Score with no escape available, but Mata trying to be the hero once again, and now we are going to have the Nether Grasp onto the top. Kenshin Smeb, he secures the kill onto the Varus. Make that a double kill. Smeb getting the 2 kills in the fight.
In the 4v5, the 3v3, the 5v5, KT Rolster be stronger. They thought they'd at least get a kill on Score when the flag and drag didn't register. Not able to do that. The turnaround too strong from KT. They continue to control the bot side as they have the entire game. They'd love a mid lane turret. That's going to take a little bit more work.
And the question was, where was Grace in all of that? He was pushing top lane, and now he's returned to the mid lane. Did not have the Zoe presence, unfortunately, in that last fight.
And that's the thing about Zoe. Again, the reason we saw less Zoe in Korea than other regions till recently is mid laners that don't have semi-globals or take teleport most of the time don't do a lot. Don't know what happened with the EQ there. That was a strange one, but it fizzled. They turned on to Score, but he doesn't die again. Lives throughout all of this. They can go closest target, and they have a comp that is way better than Jin Air's at just taking down closest target. Skarner was down. 2 members go down. KT Rolster now in a good spot. Only 1,900 gold up, but given that Jin Air really do err towards the early game, unless they can actually set up a 4-1, feels like the Lucian is not strong enough to bust through Gnar in a 1v1 right now. They're just going to get disengaged eventually. The easy objectives for the Lucians isn't there to get, and the rest of the 4 for KT is more powerful.
And you can see what happens when the fight is forced and you have teleport advantage with the unsealed spellbook from Pawn. I mean, the Zoe took Arcane Comet, a questionable choice for Grace, as you're not really going to dominate in lane with that Arcane Comet up against Pawn. It definitely helps for securing kills when you're super close after a couple of items on the Zoe, but it means that you're not there for very important fights like the last one.
Score goes for an EQ, and actually there is a lot of Jin Air members looking to get the drop. But Deft is there also to back him up, and Mata
trying to make another play, but Wraith right on top of Teddy, saying, no, you will not hurt my little Varus this time.
Omti sail around. They have no map control river and forward. They only have map control defensively. For Skarner to press Predator and come out of darkness is pretty impossible right now. Feels like the Skarner is going to be held accountable. Score is happy to push up. Getting value out of the Skarner pick is so important in the early game for any Skarner team, but seems impossible for now.
Notice that Mata is waiting nearby. Doesn't have his flash available, but look at the trade in the mid lane. Teddy trying to go 1v1 versus the Xayah. Not really working out for him, as we just saw.
Yeah, it wasn't really a trade, right? Just beating on a dead horse, it felt like. Teddy now super chunked out. Lucian's not there yet.
Ooh.
Won't quite be able to get the turret just yet, and Lucian has the culling to try to wave clear if he needs.
Just trying to bandage the wound right now, it feels, for Jin Air. Trying to not lose as much as possible, as here's the culling out of So1, as you were talking about. It's going to buy time for Teddy to get back to mid lane and try to defend, but you can see already KT across the map. They're taking blue. There are pings up in the top side. Nars pushing bottom. Immense map control given over to KT at this point in the game.
Yeah, map control for the team that has the better 5v5 and has the more reliable pick comp is a disaster for Jin Air. They're all under the turret. They're actually being forced to play as a 5, which they never want to do. They want the Lucian pressuring at all times. And Smeb, he's even threatening a turret dive.
Fails his jump, and he's going to get locked down, but doesn't really matter. Umti just disappears off the map as I'm saying that. So1 now, all alone. He uses his own dash, but gets caught up in the Cataclysm. Finally gets it back, and Wraith might be able to save his life here. Thankfully, oh, okay, never mind. Death says no to that, and down you go, Wraith, as well. That's a double kill. A Featherstorm just in time to save his life, but eventually does go down as KT. They're diving into the base, maybe a little bit too far They pick up a couple of kills, but lose 2 of their own.
Yeah, Def seems hungry today. Maybe he missed breakfast because he's having Jin Air for breakfast in this game. Relentless aggression. Did they need to turret dive? No. But the confidence it sends their team, and also the disarray it must put the Jin Air comms in, is going to be something that's so hard to evaluate from the outside. We're going to see the replay. Not sure what Smeb was doing. He thought, okay, I'm going to disengage. Kind of misjudged his model size, and that looked a bit crazy, but the end result was a stun into the wall. Skarner taken down, and So1's team fighting. He does not want to be team fighting. He's a top lane Lucian, but this is what happens when you fall behind with an early game comp. It's why I'm usually not a fan of comps like this unless you are just supremely powerful in the early game. Give me Kingzone playing Jace every game, every other team in the world. Risky. And KT Rolster, relentless diving, a couple of kills back the way of Jin Air, but not consequential ones in my eyes.
It almost felt like the 200 IQ misstep by Smeb because he baited Umti into ulting him, and it baited So1 into the fight, and he ended up stunning them both at the end of it all and getting them both killed. So ends up working out in the end. Gotta like their chances so far, but Jin Air looking to make a stand here at the Infernal Drake because Jin Air, or rather KT, not totally grouped up, but we have the TP coming in. The Infernal Drake will go over to Jin Air in the end of all things, but KT, they want to engage. They're going to get on top of So1 once again. It looks like the Cataclysm going to trade 2 in there, but Grace able to pop the Jarvan, and see you later, Rakan. That's going to be 3 kills. Double kill given over to Zoe somehow, and a broken engage from KT gets Jin Air back in the game.
Everything in sync until now. They looked too aggressively to get picks. They weren't in position to actually pull off a 5v5 front to back. Zoe able to profit massively. And Jin Air, they turn their attention to Baron, and it's probably going to be free.
Break out the Omega Lulls because the double kill here from Grace means our Zoe is going to get even more powerful. So1 trying to get away from Smeb. Looks like he's having a pretty hard time, but the Baron in the end of all things is going to go over to Jin Air. Even with the failed smite, doesn't really matter. Jin Air now very much back in this game.
And the gold lead was not massive after the last couple of kills because the farming phase has been good. Watch the replay. Smeb flashes in to take down So1. Tahm Kench is there to disengage it, and consider that Grace for once gets free target acquisition. Already low was the Jarvan. The Rakan dived in to try to spare the blushes. He went down. Xayah from downtown, and suddenly Jin Air are way back in this game out of nowhere.
Looks like our Zoe is already on 40% CDR, because could even be 45 at this point. She's in the inspiration tree because she is just getting those paddle stars off one after another with no breaks in between. And it was just lined up for her. As you were saying, it just went way too aggressive in the face of a Zoe that was roaming free in the back line. So here we go again. The Chain of Corruption is going to come down. Going to lock a bunch of them down. Look at this low. Xayah and Mata nearly going down to the Zoe. This is happening, guys.
Yeah, the Baron buff changes everything. The Siege can actually start. Now they can play 4-1 for the first time in 25 minutes of the game. KT to engage, have to look for a flash Malzahar at this point, or score with a one-way trip to dying on an aggressive Cataclysm. This should never have happened, but KT over-indexed around an Infernal, and suddenly Jin Air are looking good.
Definitely they are. We are going to have another sleep up here onto that Jarvan, but they want the engage. They find So1 in the front, but Wraith is right there. But look out for Mata in the back line. He's going to get on top of Skarner, but they can't take him out. Rakan now getting low, and the grab here onto Smeb. He's going to go down. Now a trade 1-for-1. Do have Tahm Kench getting incredibly low here in the back lines, but KT, you look at the health of Deft and Mata, they can't really engage here. Teddy now looking to be in the front lines and cause some havoc. Trying to create a distraction here. So1 and Teddy still available, still very high on health.
Yeah, Smeb dived into the back line, didn't really have a way to open up his team doing damage on the 3 members. It just kind of occupied the time of both carries, but was inevitably going to go down. It's a bit of an equal fight, kind of a 1-for-1 sort of fight there. Jin Air, from all of this, still have the Baron buff. Umti is still a turret-killing threat because of that buff. They're going to get more immediate gold and get their first gold lead of the game.
Yeah, they're going to pick up that turret up on the top side. Let's take another look at this replay here.
Yeah, very disconnected again. Smeb has a very large Narbar, so he's walking up looking for a stun. Cataclysm comes into the back line, but if you notice Smeb, he can't really get any value out of the ult. He's Skarner ulted, and they can just really use the ult for disengage, so no real value there from the Gnar. Deft isn't able to put out damage because they're doing relevant damage to the own front line. Chasing for damage on a Xayah is difficult if the enemy team is kiting backwards. Doesn't have the Infinity Edge yet to shred any sort of frontliners. So for now, at least, the damage potential there. It's almost like they were so aggressive so early that the items never caught up. Jin Air steadied the ship, and now we're just in a very interesting phase where it feels pretty even between KT and Jin Air.
Yeah, it definitely is. Jin Air have an opportunity now. They were behind earlier, but now with Soan, Grace, and Teddy, 3 people who could potentially carry on their side and try to make those flex plays. We'll see what they can do here.
Baron buff finally wears out. Big Baron buff power play. All the turrets they had no access to with how well KT played the early game are now accessible. A lot of them taken down. That's why the gold lead evaporated. Look at this, how the game has gone. KT were in a very good spot in this game, opening up the first gold lead around 3,000 gold. And with their compositional advantages, it looked like they would just ride this one out. But 3 minutes later, game looking a lot more in the balance.
Yeah. At the end of it all, even though Jin Air's in a good spot, nice wave clear from KT and not the best siege in the world from Jin Air means that we're in a bit of a stalemate in the mid lane. Jin Air still wants to push this in. Not really moving anywhere else. They're not sending anyone to the top and bottom side because the waves are pushing, so they're content to be patient for now.
280 carries, if they can push up, is going to be helpful. But yeah, the wave clear with no Baron buff, a lot less strong.
Yeah.
Smell putting up his Nabra on the side.
Oh, we got a Devour, but it's not going to be enough. We don't have 2 Tahm Kenches in this game, unfortunately for Jin Air. That's going to be 1 pick, and it looks like another one onto Wraith, meaning Soan's poor positioning gets Jin Air into a bit of trouble here.
Yeah, without the Baron buff, they don't have the same level of siege because the minions get deleted by a Q from both Pawn and Deft on the Malzahar and Xayah respectively. And because of that, a great position when it came to flanking for Soan becomes a questionable one when it can be turned on instantly. So too aggressive where Jin Air, after the Baron had worn out, we're going to see the replay here. Again, the minion wave would have lasted another few rounds of spells if Baron buff was there. It's not, so very easy to turn on Soan. It was perma-slowed by the Frozen Mallet. It was completed by Smeb. So a couple of kills there. A very even mid-game here. Both teams making some pretty critical errors. KT Rolster finally wrestled back the map control that was gone because of the Baron. Another Baron is kind of super necessary for Jin Air, I think, to once again get value out of the 4-1 siege. But setting up a Baron against Rakan and Malzahar, very difficult to do.
Definitely is. Seems like the top laners in this game are having trouble getting over that one piece of the wall on the respective opposite sides, but Soan failing his dash, getting over the wall, just an easy engage from KT afterwards. And now we're gonna slow things down here as Jin Air is not as confident to just push only down the mid lane.
And we can also take stock of where the items are, because for once, both sides you have to look for QSS and inspect them, as we have suppression on Malzahar and the Skarner. So both teams, you can see who can push forward and who can't. Zoe and Tahm Kench. Tahm Kench basically needs the QSS so he himself isn't picked. Can be there to try to disengage the other targets, whereas for KT, we dropped the overlay, but I know that Gnar has one, which is not usually what you see, but it's a lot about positioning in a team fight. Wants to get the right Gnar, doesn't want the first ability to decide it. And then Xayah as the second QSS. Malzahar has a spell shield, and I think largely, if he gets a full channel on first rotation, he's probably happy to exchange his life for Grace's.
Yeah. The other guys, like Jarvan and Rakan, they're just going to move in, do
Gwyn
the
and
job
Barrett
engaging, and then go from there.
All right, so Soan in a side lane, wants to draw Gnar to the side. KT feels a lot stronger to walk up, especially when Skarner is in vision, so they're getting the control around Baron. Unless Baron really stuffed their chances of this being a pre-30-minute game. Deft happy to walk up, can be more respectful. They actually had vision the entire time of the brush.
Trying to get rid of that magic shield on the side of Palm, but they got a good position here in the mid lane as KT members zoned out, so they can easily chunk down this turret, and KT can't really do much about it. So a nice little macro maneuver there from Jin Air. Gets them good positioning on the map.
Yeah, to get positioning on Baron, you lose positioning on the mid lane turret. A very standard rotational play that can be exploited. Very rarely can you have both, positioning on mid lane and positioning on Baron. Because you usually stretch too thin to do that. Nice little move from Jin Air. Makes it a 100 gold game, if that. Now all equal, which is really fun to see.
Yeah. So you can see that she doesn't get too much damage onto the Jarvan just yet. Trying to build into that Rabadon's death cap. No Void Staff inside just yet. Just pure damage. And here we go. They're going to go for the Baron. They have that Mountain Drake and the Inferno. Nobody's coming on in. This is going down way too fast. Zoe's spell's not going to be in range. And there you go. Baron going to go over to KT just like that.
A bit of a mistake coming through from Jin Air. They don't understand that with Infernal and Mountain, the Xayah at 3 items and the Malzahar for tankiness. My first thought was they looked at the team and said, okay, they don't have a Warmogs on the Jarvan. They can't stop Baron. But the Malzahar Voidlings to tank it up and the sheer damage amped up by the Mountain and the Infernal make Jin Air look like fools. Second Baron stolen under their noses by KT Rolster. An even game blown apart by a smart, decisive call from KT.
So as this game is getting in longer, we're here at 33 minutes, we have 4 members with Gathering Storm. Grace and Teddy and Smeb and Pawn. So 2 each. Interesting to see the Gnar with 1.
It's Jin Air. Jin Air's in the game. Everyone priced into the Gathering Storm over the Scorch. Scorch is an option against the Lucian, but if you really feel like, okay, they're going to path around him, I'm going to be weak here, let's play around bot side, why not scale up?
Yeah.
And be future-proof for later?
Nobody really gets the water walking.
No.
I think that needs a small buff, for sure. But with the Baron now, we are going to have the members of KT pushing on into the top lane. 1v1 in mid, 4v4 on top.
And the 4-1 does involve Gnar pushing into Lucian, so not going to make any significant coverage there. Very difficult to engage. Keft can walk up. He has the Quicksilver Sash and the Feather Storm, so 2 different ways to evacuate himself. Very easy for KT to keep kiting backwards, so no Paddle Stars hitting just yet. Is a much more labored game than we thought for KT. Returning with the second Baron buff minion wave. They have about 3 more of these before the timer weighs out. Getting no value here. They're definitely threatening for a turret dive.
Yeah, they certainly are. Look at the positioning of Score in the backside. The Chain of Corruption gets blown there onto Deft, just as Teddy was in a bit of trouble. And Smeb not doing a bad job here in the mid lane. That mid turret getting down below half health now. You can see that Grace still, even on max range Paddle Stars, doesn't do too much chunk damage against Score. So he's a very sturdy front line for them against the Zoe so far.
Yeah, very late on the Void Staff here coming through from Zoe. Went for Death Cap instead, which adds a bit more wave clear, but not quite as much oomph to the front line like you mentioned, and they can just ride the next minion wave in and be fine. Smeb is largely just a couple of autos, but the Baron buff minions doing the brunt of the work. Speaking of Baron buff minions, going into the inhibitor turret.
Yeah, they're pushing on in because Skarner was bot lane. And look at this, 1v1 again. Death forces the Devour early. So he may have an opportunity for Pawn to go in here. But look at the damage onto Grace. He goes way too far forward. Mata gets low, but it doesn't matter. They find the pick they needed. That's going to be 1 inhibitor, and they're going to be looking for more.
Yeah, madness from Grace. Had such a great series a couple of days ago, but pokes in forward with the portal jump in range of the Jarvan combo when he backs out to his original spot. That should never happen at the professional level. Jarvan's engage rate is something that everyone plays around. With Grace dead, more turrets will roll for KT.
That they will. We'll see if they push on in from here. It looks like the answer is no, as Mata chooses to back. The Baron buff just ending now, so a very nice Baron power play. They get the top tier 2, the mid tier 2, and of course the inhibitor and the inhibitor turret, and then the bottom tier 2. Now with Elder Drake spawn and 3 Drakes for KT, looking to make a play around here.
No way for Grace to be here. Doesn't have Unsealed Spellbook, no teleport. So they have to give it up. Will be Elder eventually taken by KT Rolster. 3 buff Elder, now 12% AD and AP. No stacking of buffs, but still a wonderful spot for KT to be in. Full builds for most. They're ready to close the game.
Yeah. Small little hiccup in the mid-game, and they claw their way back into this one on the back of some mistakes from Jin Air, and that consistent play we've come to love from KT, at least in 2018.
We got the full
so
KT roller coaster experience, guys. KT Rolster, KT roller coaster is that they got too excited, started diving the base and thought the game's over. made a huge mistake around the Drake that led to a Baron, but since then have kind of corrected the flow of the game, calmed down a little bit. Now in a great spot to close it.
It's generally in games like these where you can afford to make mistakes like that, but say they make a very aggressive play like that against Kingzone, they might be losing this one.
Also, you have to consider the draft because they made, and it's kind of the flow of every KT game that they played in 2017, was they would pick, you know, DPS in every lane out of meta, a Rumble instead of a top lane tank, and then get a big lead and eventually throw, but not actually have a comp that could close the game.
Yeah.
Whereas here they have the comp that can close the game and got an early lead kind of against expectation. So when you have a Nara top lane, when you have true engage in multiple roles, it's much easier to close a game when you have engage and frontline for the ability to check for wars, the ability to play around Baron. So they have a balanced comp. They kind of have more fallback than they did in their 2017 drafts, and that does allow them in this meta to still be in a great position to close the game against Jin Air.
Yeah. The Elder Drake is taken down here, though, 45 seconds, and they haven't been able to significantly push any other lane. The wave clear out of Jin Air is fantastic from Teddy and Grace so far. Grace still working on that Void Staff, you'll notice. It'd be very nice to see exactly how much gold he has and how close he is exactly. I think it's about 2,200 or something like that when you've only got a the tome in your inventory, but that's going to be one turret going down fast. And look at that,
Whoa!
The 4-man Cataclysm. Looks like every single flash in the game is blown by Jin Air to get out of that one, but that's going to be a free inhibitor and a bunch of flashes just for one engage out of score.
Yeah, that's definitely trading up. 3 flashes, the Devour and the Relentless Pursue to get away from all of that. They're trying to re-engage though, Jin Air.
Yeah, they're trying to get here onto Smeb, but they can't quite do it. The stuns come out. It looks like even though he escapes with his life, can't quite find the pick he was looking for.
And I think Deft was hit by a paddle star because he was chunked out very low. Missed if that was Teddy or Grace putting out the burst damage. Does snap back. He is able to heal up. Next Baron spawns in 10 seconds. Control Ward's been there a long time. Feels like KT will have to get a 3rd Baron of the game to close the game out.
Yep. Looks like they're going to go for it right when it spawns here. Pawn and Deft alone can bring this down. Look at how fast it goes. Just like that, the extra damage your Voidlings do, and of course Deft, everybody on full items, and the Drakes going to be an easy pick for them. Jin Air, they couldn't get close.
6 items, Xayah now complete as well. Monstrously powerful. If Jin Air can't kite out of the Q damage every time that's registering, health bars are being deleted on the side of Jin Air. Game is taking a while to close out, kind of the way on patch 8.3. There's a lot of damage to respect for KT, so that's why you can't just ignore and try to close the game. They're going to bring up multiple minion waves here. They have 2 inhibitors already down and 1 last inhibitor turret to be broken. Looking for the tutorial victory in game 1.
Yeah, certainly is looking that way. We're going to be looking for someone like or Grace to make the miracle play, but with both of them having their flashes down after the last engage, it's looking quite dire for our Jin Air players here.
Team to push in, like you say, flashes are down, so everyone walking up.
Deft is getting in there, uses his Feather Storm and beats in Jin Air. They take away Teddy off of the map. We are going to have the grab on the score, but hey, he's still got his stopwatch 41 minutes into the game. Now we're going to have the lockdown onto Umti. That's going to be the end of his life and the end of the rest of Jin Air here. Nice little ultimate from Smeb. They want to get the entire kill, the ace, but they can't quite do it as Sohan does live in the end, but KT looking good to finally end game number 1 here at about 41 minutes into the game. The last Nexus turrets, they want to get that last kill onto Sohan, but they can't quite do it. Sohan kind of just laughing from the pool, but KT laughing as they take game 1.
KT's bottom lane has seemed to have the number of Teddy and Ray 3 games in a row. 2-0 in the first round robin through bot lane. The 1-0 here, all about Deft and Marta. Reading the script and saying, well, Skarner's going to jungle around top side. Let's overextend. It was like something out of solo queue. How far extended they were in the lane. Took the turret low. Jin Air thought they could get advantages elsewhere. They couldn't. KT still did make a unlikely mistake where they got far too excited around the Drake, gave up Baron, delayed the game. I think that's what required there to be 2 further Barons for KT to close. Like the draft from KT, Jin Air took some risks, it didn't work. Looking for some more balanced stuff from them in game 2, because in game 1, if you make the game narrow and then don't actually get wins around where you've drafted strength, this is the likely result.
The KT manager looking incredibly satisfied after that last game, although it was a bit of a smirk knowing that, hey, it's my boys on the KT team. They're always going to make things interesting. They're always going to play with their hearts in the game, even when they're so far ahead. So on the Lucian. He had some good moments. Unfortunately, could not carry his team to the victory.
I mean, Deft initiating with his face. It's one of the reasons they lost so many big games last year, Valdez, all the face checks. This year, you remember the Caitlyn around Baron that baited in the enemy team. Here, he's largely trying to be the bait. Such a tasty bait, killing the Xayah first in a team fight. Never going to happen when he has the Mercurial Scimitar and 6 items and over shields for days. They close out the game. They try to pad the KDAs. Half successful, half not on that one, but a successful game 1 victory for KT Rolster.
Yeah, gonna have to talk a little bit about that hiccup, but looking strong elsewhere during the game. So, guys, we're gonna have to go to one of those short commercial breaks that you've come to know and love, but we'll be back for game number 2.